Good afternoon, councillors, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this licensing meeting. I'm Councillor Chris Mountain, Chairman of the Licensing Committee. To my left is Councillor Baxter, who's going to be standing in as Vice Chair. Before we start, may I remind everyone in attendance that this meeting is being live streamed on YouTube. If there are any members of the public in the attendance, there isn't. With the preliminaries, the restroom is available on this floor for the ladies and halfway down the main stairwell for the men's. In the event of the fire alarm sounding, officers will escort everybody out of the building to the nearest safety point in the car park. I will now move to part one of the agenda, the preliminaries. Do we have any apologies for absence?
Yes, Chairman, we have apologies from Councillors Cantwell, Marson and Savikian.
Thank you very much. Do we have any members that wish to declare any interest in respect of today's agenda? I think that was a no. And do I have the permission of the committee to sign the minutes last held on the 12th of December 2023? Agreed. Thank you. Have there been any public questions received from the committee?
There are none, Chairman.
Thank you very much. We will now move to part two of the agenda, the gambling policy review, which starts on page 3 of the agenda pack. Donna, would you like to present the report, please?
Thank you, Chair. So councils are required to have and to publish a Gambling Act Statement of Principles, otherwise known as our gambling policy. It's something that we're required to have by law and governs our licensing processes and decision making for gambling activities. And we're required to renew it at least every 3 years. The licensing officer, Anna McDowell, who couldn't unfortunately be here today, has reviewed the policy and we're in agreement that it is fit for purpose, subject to a few minor amendments that have been proposed. And you'll see those outlined in section 2 of the report. So the recommendation we're seeking today is that members agree that the updated policy can go out for public consultation for 4 weeks. But we're also suggesting that if members are happy that we receive no significant consultation feedback, that it would go forward to full council for approval rather than coming back to this committee. And of course, that would be discussed with the chair before making that decision. So that's an additional recommendation that we would like to ask committee today. I think that's hopefully you've had an opportunity to read the report. As I said, the policy is very similar to the previous policy. It's updated and there's a few improvements made, but certainly no substantial amendments from the previous policy. But I'll be happy to answer any questions, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do I have a proposer? Yeah, I'm happy with that. Councillor Woodliffe seconds. Thank you very much. Are there any speakers on this item? We'll go with Councillor Woodliffe first, if possible, please.
I was looking at page 25 and it's about the bingo, and it says here, before issuing additional bingo premises licenses, licensing authorities need to consider whether bingo can be played at each of these new premises. I don't know how you determine that, actually. How do you determine whether bingo can be played or not be played at new premises? I mean, well, I might have played bingo sometime in my life, but I can't see how. Surely any room would do, wouldn't it?
Can you answer that, Donna, please?
Thank you. So apologies, because obviously Anna had prepared the done the work on preparing the policy. I am, reasonably familiar with gambling legislation, but I think the intention there is around having the facility and the means, so there would be demonstrable to the officer that they have that facility to provide bingo. Is that how you? I'm not sure if that's answered your query.
So, I mean, I know what bingo is about. But I thought any room would do, perhaps, and I don't know. What other members think? I don't know.
Councillor Evans?
Could it mean, am I on? Yeah. Could it mean that or the place must be designated for bingo? It's then got other licensable activities like fruit machines and alcohol and whatever. And if you then find that you're making more money, being a bit cynical here, if you're making more money from the alcohol and the gaming machines, you sort of do away with the bingo, then you're no longer a bingo premises. I think that's where it's angled at.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Thank you, Chair. As I read through this, what I wanted to ask a few questions, if possible, because this is the first time I've been involved in this sort of policy. Presumably, a lot of this is statutory and comes from central government. So in a way, what we do within our council is we can tweak it like it has been done in red for, well, what we consider to be changes. Would that be right, please?
Thank you. Yes, that's correct. So the legislation requires us by law to have a statement of principles or a policy, and there's also prescriptive regulations and statutory guidance that tell us what the content of our policy. There is very little room. There is some room for local consideration, but there are many stipulations that have to be followed. So what you will find is a lot of policies across local authorities will look quite similar. So yes, you're correct that there are some reflections of our local considerations, but on the whole, the content is in line with the legislation.
Thanks, Donna. My next thing would be, obviously, some of our residents are concerned about these establishments where young people go in, and on television we see where people have got into debt through gambling and taken their own lives. So what I was wondering is, there's no scope within our local policy to say, for example, limit the number of gambling establishments in the town centre. Is there any provision to do that, please, Donna?
Thank you. No, there's no provision to do that with gambling legislation. So with Licensing Act, there are certain policies that can be implemented, but we wouldn't be able to do that with the gambling legislation currently.
Okay, thank you. My next question, with living in a rural area, I've noticed a lot of our village halls and community centres have some old signs saying licence under the whatever act. So are village halls and community centres then, they still have to have a licence, do they? Or some of the signs look out of date. Should that be displayed, please?
So I'm not sure if you're referring to the Licensing Act. I think you might be referring to the...
Oh, so that's to do with alcohol, not gambling.
Alcohol regulated entertainment, yeah. So that we have a different policy.
Okay, sorry.
It does get confusing because Licensing Act does stray into entertainment. This policy is strictly about gambling. So we're talking about betting premises, bingo, small society lotteries, kind of thing.
So within like a community centre, if you were having a community bingo session, you don't really have to have a licence then?
Not ordinarily. So small society lotteries, there's a set of rules that would determine which activities would fall within that. So that's something that we would license on a local level, a small society lottery. A lot of kinds of those bingo activities, if the tickets are sold on the day and they're not making a profit, for example, then on a commercial basis, then they wouldn't require a license. I would generally say with some small society lotteries, if anyone's got a question about an activity within your ward, or someone has a question, we would speak to them on a bespoke basis, because the parameters can be quite complicated.
Thanks, Donna. Last question, you'll be pleased to hear. As I read through, obviously it mentions about delegated authority starting on page 39, and the various appendices says what's for council. As I went through though, it does mention as well, an officer may choose not to exercise their delegated power. So as I went through, it's probably me, it didn't really say who's delegated. It lists all the different matter to be dealt with, but then it doesn't always say who's got the delegated authority, or is that within the Constitution or somewhere, please?
So the roots of this is the constitution, where it begins, if you like, that process from the primary legislation, where it's delegated to the committee, and then as you can see, in some circumstances it's delegated to officers, depending on that, on what the policy says and what's being decided. Is there any specific ones that you were querying?
No, it's just that I suppose when it said full council all cases, I was expecting it to go on then to say who's delegated. Say, for example, application for premises licence. It's not the full council, but it can be the subcommittee. But it didn't really say, well, I probably read it wrong. It didn't really say that, say, for example, our licensing officer is as a delegated authority, if you know what I mean.
It might. I think I do understand what you mean, and in some ways, I think it perhaps is just maybe the wording could be clarified further. Just to sort of top of page 40, just to give you an example. So, for example, where it says final approval of the 3-year licensing statement of principles, that is a duty of full council that can't be delegated. So that's probably why those other two boxes are blank. But we could always make it clearer that that is the case.
I just thought, like, looking at that, it would be clear to say someone who's reading it or whatever, that either goes to a delegated authority or to the committee. So thank you, Donna, for your time and patience.
Thank you.
Councillor Woodliff.
Thank you, Chairman. I think the only thing that really worries me about that's not here that worries me. The real concern, of course, is online gambling. Of course, this doesn't touch any of that. There's no control over that, and it's very insidious, I think. I mean, all this is controlled if you're running a bingo, or you're running a fruit machine place or something like that. It's all under control and validated as such, and we have some influence over it. But online gambling, there's no control, and it's a massive business.
No, I would agree.
Huge business, and I think hugely insidious business. And that's all I would say. I mean, I've done no objection to this. It's fine. Yeah.
Donna, do you want to come in?
Thank you. I think you're probably sort of aware from the policy, but online gambling, those kinds of facilities tend to be regulated by the Gambling Commission. So we, on a local level, would issue premises licence for premises such as betting shops, bingo, that kind of thing. Yeah. So. But the operators' licenses are issued by the Gambling Commission, so they tend to deal with the bigger enterprises and certainly online gambling. When occasionally, we do get the opportunity to work with partners on issues such as gambling-related harm. Sometimes, there has been work historically with County Council and other partners, so I, would certainly want to support that if the opportunity arises.
I think the problem is if the gambling organisation operates outside the United Kingdom. And when you're online, you can go anywhere in the world. So it's very difficult for the Gambling Commission to have any control over a gambling operation that operates out of India or Nigeria or whatever. That's my really concern. Thank you for your guidance. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Evans.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, the policy here that Boston Borough Council has to approve and adopt, you can't really say much, but it needs to be said that the Gambling Commission are wrong in so many ways. The government policy, previous and probably current, is also wrong. They do not protect the people that gambling affects. Now, I know there's nothing that we can do about that, but if the council as a whole do get the opportunity to make a representation to the government, or especially to the Gambling Commission, then I would urge that they do so, especially when it comes to advertising for gambling. Thank you.
No, I would fully agree with Councillor Evans on that matter as well. Is there any other further speakers? Brilliant, thank you. So going through the actual document itself, there's some new elements into the document from the previous, which I really do like. And like we say, this is on a local level as opposed to, the wider element. The local risk assessments I particularly like in there. It's putting the onus on businesses to have to do more localised risk assessments and more up-to-date staff training. I think the previous was the staff need to be trained, and that sort of is where the line ended, where there now needs to be an ongoing localised risk assessment done by these premises. So if anything changes within the area that's around there, that they have to change what's being done with on the premises, and it may affect the licence. On the whole, the documents are another really easy read. It's been well manipulated compared to the last one. It's had a few little tweaks here and there, but other than that, it reads really well, and it's fairly clear and set out. With that, I'll move to the vote. Is everybody in favour? That's carried. So as regards to obviously coming back to ourselves, I'm happy with just a consultation to myself and then going straight up to full committee. If anything does change within the parameters of the document that we've seen today, obviously I'd like to know, and then I'll put it to the committee to bring it back to committee if required. And that concludes this afternoon's business, and I will close the meeting. Thank you very much.